Okay. By the way, these are examples of public advocacy by corporations. That how corporations do this public advocacy. And there's a lot of positions that come into all these organizations where they have to do public advertisements for messaging to the public that how their softwares are safe, you might have seen these ads by Instagram and now by Facebook and all others. In fact Microsoft also does it. So this is an example of advocacy that you should know. Now Pooja's candidatures has been cancelled and she has been barred from all examinations conducted by UPSC. So some good news. Now with respect to two three things. Now let's talk about two important news that you should do your proper research on. I had sent you the background of this particular organization, Hezbollah, yesterday, if you remember. So you should have a very fair idea about what Hezbollah is. It means Party of the God. And why does it operate from Lebanon? Because there are two things that have happened very recently with respect to Israel. It was said that the final touches to the peace settlement was about right around the corner. But now what has happened is there was an attack from on Golan Heights, which is an area which has been occupied by Israel, and which earlier used to be part of Lebanon. Now, so you should be very well aware about the map of Israel, at least for the next 2 years, because we never know what kind of questions will be asked from that particular region. Now, once you see that, so you should be aware that because of what has happened in Golan Heights, 12 children died because of a rocket attack. And then Israel had launched a missile attack in Beirut, which is the capital of Lebanon, and which has led to the death of one of the chiefs of Hezbollah. And the other thing that Israel has done is that it has also killed this person by the name of Haniyeh. Now he was also one of the top leaders of Hamas, which basically was the terrorist group, or the political organization, if you want to say, of Palestine and Gaza, espousing the cause of Gaza. Now again, he was basically attending the swearing in of the new Iranian president. And after the swearing in, there was some kind of an aerial attack that killed him. Now this has brought the entire region to basically a tinderbox, where everything is very charged up. The is now We will also read in the explained page that there is this axis of resistance, which is led by Iran. Now you have to understand the entire West Asia, and Middle East Asia as well. Now, if you see the entire West Asia, you have or the Middle East, you have two kinds of countries. One is a Sunni country, one is the Sunni block of countries, and the other is Shia block of countries. Now, among these, you should be aware that Iran is basically the champion of the Shiite bloc, and Saudi Arabia is the champion of the Sunni bloc. So within the Middle East, there is this Shia and Sunni issue that keeps on going. Now, apart from that, what you should also be aware about is that Iran backs everyone who is against Israel. Now, among all of these, what Iran is doing, Iran indirectly fuels Hamas as well. It also arms Hezbollah as well, which is from Lebanon. It also arms Houthi rebels in Yemen as well, and it can directly attack Israel as well. So this is the entire. I mean, they've created an ecosystem of resistance against the Zionist state. Israel is also called a Zionist state. So that is how this entire region is being developed. And then Turkey also kind of backs Iran and all these countries with respect to this. So you have Israel, which is surrounded by all these countries which are against it, and the powers which kind of support is US, which arms Israel. At the same point of time, a nuanced stance is always taken by countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, because of the relationship that US has with Israel. Now, this also complicates further issues when it comes to what is going to happen in November, December this year, when Donald Trump or Kamala Harris comes to power, because for example, Kamala Harris has said that she will go hard on Netanyahu to find out a ceasefire agreement, whereas Trump, for that matter, is quite anti Israel. So these are other developments that one needs to see in this entire region. So read about this. This is very interesting, especially if you have PSI or optional. I mean, this has to interest you. And then you should also worry about the fact that what this will do. Now, one question that could be there is, what kind of impact that it should. I mean, it is something that is happening in another part of the world. Does it have an impact on India? Now, it does have an impact on India directly and indirectly. Because we have 9 million, and this is something that you should be aware. These numbers you should be very aware about. We have 9 million expats which are living in this particular region, earning their income and then transferring it to back to India. Apart from that, apart from the fact that global trade, this is very important from a global trade point of view, because this entire region passes through the Suez Canal and the and these Bab and Mandal. So any kind of attacks on the shipping routes, just like Yemenis, Houthis had done in the earlier part of the year, which will have an impact on not just on crude oil, but also on exports and imports that India does. And apart from that, the final thing is the IMEC, the Indian this thing, Middle East European corridor that we had suggested during our G20 residency, and which passes through the entire Middle East, passes through Haifa port in Israel, and then goes to Europe. So the trade and connectivity, if all these countries are in turmoil, then the trade and connectivity that we are seeking for goes for a toss. So these are important news that you should be aware about. Then the other important news that we are going to briefly cover. So I've given you the entire summary of what has happened with respect to Israel and Lebanon, and Israel and Tehran. Now let's talk about the landslides. Now you should also be aware about what is happening in the state of Kerala. Now, Wayanad is one of the disaster-prone regions. In fact, the entire state of Kerala is extremely prone to landslides. Now, as a student of UPSC CSE, you should know what are the processes of landslide, how does landslide happen, and what is this factor called as liquefaction. Please read about what liquefaction is, that how land becomes actually a liquid, and then it slides down. Now, there were two committees in the past which was set up with respect to this. One was a Madhav Gadgil committee in 2010 or 2011. Now, that particular committee said that there should be ecologically sensitive zones: zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. You should be aware about what these three zones are. And it said that around 1 lakh or something square kilometers of the entire Western Ghats should be under the protected regime, and no kind of mining, no kind of commercial activity should be allowed, according to Madhva Gadgil, in that particular region. Now, if that is the case, then if you are aware of the fact that this entire region of Western Ghats is also a very important region for mines and minerals, and this would hit, if such kind of regulation is there, this would hit the state government because of the mining revenues that they get. So this was considered, this Madhav Gadgil committee was considered as to be extremely pro environment and not pro people, and pro revenues, and not people centric. Now then the government set up another committee under ISRO, former ISRO chairman, in 2013, which was called as K Kasturi Rangan report. Now K Kasturi Rangan report took a much more nuanced approach towards this entire region, and he said only 37% of the entire region needs to be in the ecological sensitive zone, and he also took care that in what areas mining can be allowed, in what areas ecotourism can be allowed, in what areas nothing should be changed. But what is consistent between both these reports was that parts of Kerala, including the part of where this tragedy has happened in Wayanad, are parts of extremely ecological sensitive zones which should not be tinkered with. Now the problem is that despite the fact that one report came in 2011, the other report came in 2013, nothing has happened on the ground in terms of regulation of activities in this particular state. And then this is, people say that this is a natural disaster. I would also like to add, and you have to do disaster management, so you should be aware about. By the way, as a part of disaster management, you should be aware about what are the different kinds of disaster: man-made, human, and natural disasters, industrial disasters, and what are the processes for disaster management for each particular kind of disaster. You can use your GPTs for this particular purpose, and you can also use the National Disaster Response Force and National Disaster Authorities text for this particular analysis. But this is very important for you for your mains perspective. Now, as I was saying that people say that this is a natural disaster, I would like to add, just like Kedarnath, this is not just a natural disaster, this is also a human disaster, or a man-made disaster. Why? Because yes, nature has provided the inputs in terms of a very heavy rainfall, but if you see of the landslides that we have seen in the country, of the 5,000 odd landslides that we have seen in the country, around 3,000 of them have happened in Kerala, which means that there is a predictability around landslides. And if you know that a particular region is going to have landslides, is much more vulnerable, and if you still close your eyes and if you go with business as usual, you're just inviting misery onto you. The nature is telegraphing something to you, and telling you not to do something, and if you stay stoic and say no, I'm going to face the nature's wrath, then this is what you're going to get. So read about these two areas, were very very important with respect to this. Then another development that has happened is that we have seen a lot of disturbances in this in the periphery of Jammu these days, and therefore what the government has done is, the government is saying that we are going to weaponize these village defense committees with traditional as well as semi-automatic weaponry, so that we can cut down on these especially on these tunnels that have been prepared by these terrorists. Then you can, if you want to read about some kind of tax terrorism, maybe you can read this. And then Olympians are losing sleep because of heat, not food, theft, transport. Paris is not the best place to be right now. The experience suggests that it's not a great city to be in, especially if you see the kind of robbery that happens in Paris. So this is an important development. Now there are few news that I want you to cover apart from this. now if you are there in Rajendra you might have seen that despite whatever has happened, again you had huge waterlogging yesterday. Um, you can read this. Constructive India China hold talks to resolve standoff and on LAC. So there is something called as working mechanism for consultation coordination on India China border affairs. You should be aware about this mechanism, because this mechanism is the way through which all border issues are resolved between India and China. So working mechanism for consultation and coordination, WMCC, on India China border affairs. You should be aware about this. Then center has urged the Supreme Court to declare mineral royalty judgment prospectively, not retrospectively. You should be aware of the fact that this will say that whatever, even if royalty is not a tax, then the states cannot ask that for money that they have already provided in the past. They can ask for that, but the states can keep the money in the future. So this is another development that has happened. We already know this. The more important news is this: direct seeded rice and zero tillage wheat. Rice Tech and Maheko form a joint venture. Now we all are aware of the fact that how rice cropping in Haryana and Punjab, and then wheat cropping and residue burning causes a major environmental problem in the entire northern hemisphere. Now, what these two companies have come up, and these are private companies which price their product quite, decently, but they also have a entire ecosystem to address the problems of that we are facing right now. Now, we are facing two kinds of problems. One is that these people are not diversifying enough from right and wheat. The other thing is the kind of cultivation that happens with rice and wheat. In case of rice, what happens is that there is this sowing that happens in a nursery, and then suppose you have a separate kind of an area where you sowed your seeds, and then you have small plants coming up. And while you have these small plants coming up, what you do is you flood the entire field where you have to produce the rice, and then you you transplant all these saplings to the main field. You transplant them, and then you keep watering it, because very very important, because water is a natural herbicide. This is something that was new for me today as well, folks. It is a natural herbicide. What it does is it does not allow this weeds to grow, jungly chawal and something called as motha to develop, and that is why the flooding and the softening of the topsoil is there. Now what Rice Tech has done is it has a full page tech, which is called as full page tech, and it has created a variety which does not need this transplanting. You can directly seed the rice. That's why the name is direct seeded rice. You can directly seed the rice in the ground. It does not need so much of water, because it comes with a herbicide. Now this herbicide that is there, traditionally what you do is, if you grow a normal rice, and if you use a herbicide, then what happens is that herbicide does not does not distinguish between the crop and the invasive plant, and also the crop is also killed if you use the herbicide. But now what has happened is, what you have done is you have modified the DNA sequence. So you have not introduced a new DNA. If you introduce a new DNA, it's called as genetic modification. But what you have done is you have altered the DNA sequence, and by altering the DNA sequence, now what you can do is you can spread you can use this particular herbicide, which is by the name I'm forgetting. So you can yes, there is this is the name, Isam Izame Thepar, whatever that means. So now you can use this particular herbicide, and now the plant can also absorb and be compatible with this particular normal herbicide. And then They have also launched another kind of technique which is called as free hit ZT technology, where you can sow the wheat seeds directly in without any stubble burning. You don't need to burn the stubble, and use this again herbicide Azamethoper with another metribuzin. And what this does, it basically removes all the previous paddy that you've used, and now you, without burning the crop residue, you can now use this particular kind of seed. So this is something which is very important. These are examples that you should know. This is also important from agriculture point of view, but also from a science and tech point of view. Now, I've already talked to you about the slipping land, the Wayanad tragedy, and the developments with respect to this. All of that, this thing, and ISRO has a landslide atlas which released last year, which where 15 of the top district are in Kerala. And then we are getting a huge amount of rainfall because of the hot warming of the Arabian Sea, which is southern Arabian Sea, which is creating an instability in the environment and giving a lot of rain into bring a lot of rain into Kerala. And this will be exacerbated in the coming years because of more of El Nino and La Nina. We have a La Nina season these days, so this will further intensify, so we need to be prepared with respect to this. And as I was telling you, that of the 3,700 landslides that were that the country reported, around 2,200 were reported in Kerala, which means that we know that Kerala is going to get this particular kind of landslides. And if we know and we don't act according to it, then that becomes a man-made tragedy and not a completely natural tragedy. And you can read this ESCs, category 1, category 2. You should be aware of all these three categories, and then how the farmers protested against these norms, and and then they were criticized to be too environmental forward and not people centric, and now we are bearing the brunt of that particular issue. Then on the precipice is basically the Hamas attack, assassination of the Hamas leader in Iran, as well as the airstrike in Beirut. As I told you, will make the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas a much more distant news. And with respect to this, we have 8.9 or 9 million migrant workers who are in the who are in this particular region, and then the India Middle East European corridor is also going to be it cannot take off without Israel or Hamas or any particular player in the region not working towards safety and security as well as peace. Then a very good article with respect to quick hiring. Maybe you can read this. It's fun. Basically, John Maynard Keynes in 1930s had said that that people in the 20th century will not work more. They will have 15-hour a week. But leave about 15-hour a week. I at times I'm working at 15 hours a day. So which basically is saying that we have not worked less, we have worked even harder. Now there are news. There are these new terms called as quiet hiring. You have resentism, and then quiet quitting. So all of these show that the churn that we are going through, the HR is going through in the 21st century. Uh, then this is an article we had read about the two-pronged response, and we've read about the Maharashtra Public Security Bill. And the Maharashtra Public Security Bill we had criticized a lot because it talks about tackling Naxalism, including urban Naxalism, and it gives very wide powers to the police with respect to arrest and also anything. Just give me 1 second. So the thing is that we had criticized this Maharashtra Public Security Bill because of a number of reasons, that it gives draconian powers to the police with respect to arrest on mere suspicion, and then it also gives the power for detention for substantial period to the police. But here, Hitesh Jain basically defends that we have. He tries to, because he's a BJP member. He basically tries to say that no, we have issues of urban Naxalism in India, which needs to be tackled, and then we are also addressing the Gadchi, the area of what was that area in Maharashtra, which was Garchiroli, Garchiroli area of Maharashtra, which is a Naxal infected area, with investments, so that the poverty can reduce, and if the poverty reduce, people will not go for such kind of violence. And he also says that there is danger. If there is any kind of action that constitute menace to the public order, peace, tranquility, interferes with the maintenance of public order. This is what it says. But again, these are too wide. These are too wide terms. It can also target anything which is on dissent. Tomorrow, if I start protesting against the MCD with respect to this, can it not be constituted as a menace to the public order, peace, and tranquility, and interferes in the maintenance of public order? So I can then be booked under as a urban Naxal, and then put under trial by the Maharashtra public security bill. So it's not about the bill and where you use it. It's about how you are defining the bill, and you have to see the kind of misuse that a bill can have. And we've already seen that how we are using and misusing so many acts in case of India. So the money laundering, if you see the money laundering bill. So how we are keeping these politicians under jail, despite limited evidence against them, and a number of other factors. So it's about the misuse that I personally feel, but it is being defended by Hitesh Jain here. Then you can read this article, Devyani O'Neill. Not there's nothing to it. In general, it talks about civil services and stuff, links it to movies if you want to read it. For me, a more important article is this: An Eye on Debt. Now, this is something, folks, when I'll teach you for prelims and for mains, when I'll teach you this fiscal federalism, I deal with these debt issues in depth. And this is for people who are taking economics as an optional. This topic will be taken up by Nikita Jain in your class. Nikita is a student of mine who got ranked 4 in Indian Economic Services 5 years ago, and she is a part of the 16th Finance Commission. So maybe I can ask her to take a GS session on fiscal federalism as well. And both of us work in the same region. Both of us have interest in a lot of government related schemes and government related things. This particular article highlights something on debt. Now, we've all talked about fiscal deficit, and we've talked about that the budget talks about a 4.9% fiscal deficit. I've given you the numbers of fiscal deficit. If you've attended any of my budget sessions, you already know that the government is going to borrow somewhere around 16 lakh crore rupees, and which constitutes somewhere around 4.9% of your GDP, and of which around 12 lakh crores the government is going to borrow from the markets. So in fact I'll share with you. In fact, I've shared it with you. There is an explainer video that I've done with Lallan Top, which talks about the debt profile of the country, where I've explained that how does the government of India take debt. Of the 16 lakh crore rupees, 12 lakh crore rupees is through market borrowings, and the rest 4 lakh crore rupees is through small savings certificates. Now, let's securities against small savings certificates. Now let's talk about the debt pattern of the states. Just like the central government is borrowing, the state governments also borrow. And the borrowing profile of the state government is something which we are talking about here. Now, the 16th Finance Commission says that the size of the fiscal deficit from the state level between 2026 and 31, we are going to work that the fiscal deficit of each particular state. So the central government tells the state governments that this is how much you can borrow from the market or from any source. So this is an unequal relationship. The central government can borrow any particular amount, but the state governments can only borrow amount which is allowed by the central government. This is given from Article 293 to somewhere around 298. The relations with respect to borrowing limits. Maybe you can have a read if you want to read the constitution side of things of this. Now what the government says is that we are going to work with the assumption of 3% deficit over medium term. So every state government's GDP will be seen, and they will be allowed to borrow around 3% of its GDP, state GDP, which is called a net borrowing ceiling, NBC, by the government of India. And you can then add, I mean if I'm taking a loan today, and if I'm repaying it back, so say 5 years ago I took a loan and then I repaid it back, then I've already repaid the loan, so I've already redeemed some part of the loan, so I can also have some fresh borrowings that I can do. So if you add those redemption that you have done to the amount that you can borrow this year, if you add these two, you will get what is called as gross borrowings. So the amount to be redeemed in the fiscal is added to the individual NBC to arrive at the gross fiscal borrowings of the state to be permitted. Now what we have seen is before the 12th Finance Commission, the center was the main source of giving borrowed funds to the states. But after 2006-2007, the markets became the prime source, and you can see that the market borrowings had increased had surged to 10.1 trillion, thus lakh crore, in 2023-24, from 4.8 lakh crores in 2018-19, and at the end of, so this is how much the market is they've borrowed. As I told you that the government of India is borrowing 17 lakh crores, and the state government market borrowings is 10 lakh crores from last year. Now let's add to this the at the end of 2024 March, the total stock, the overall borrowing that the government that all the state governments have done. So it is basically, if someone has issued a bond say 5 years ago, we are also calculating that. So the total outstanding state government security stock was around 56 lakh crore rupees, which is around 55% of the total outstanding bonds of government of India. So basically the government of India has around 100 trillion rupees or 100 lakh crore rupees of bonds, GSECs, which are circulating, and the state governments have 56 trillions worth circulating. Now based on the current stock of debt, we estimate that the state government securities redeem would jump as much as to 20 trillion between these numbers, and then it will reduce down. So what we know is that in the next 10 years the borrowings of the states will keep on increasing, because some states are going to borrow a lot, and the borrowing profiles of each particular state is also going to be very different. Typically there are two kinds of states. Some states borrow for a short tenure, and some states borrow for a long tenure. Now states which borrow heavily for a short tenure have the problem of rollover. So for example, for refinance, I'll give you an example. Now suppose I take a loan on my on my house, and then I say pay off something, say buy a car or something like that, and then say I'm not able to pay back that loan, then I refinance my house again at a higher rate of interest, and then I pay back this money. So this is called as refinancing. You've already financed something, and then you're refinancing, taking another loan on that particular loan. So now if some states are borrowing for a short term period, then what happens is that they are going to have this refinancing and roll over risk of loans. But what we have seen is the average maturity of the state government stock outstanding has it was around 8.5 years, and it was only 6.7 in the in 2019. So that tenure has increased, and some states borrow for a long term basis, they don't borrow for a short term basis. So read about this. Apart from that, the government has given loans to the state governments in two forms of late. One is the for the GST compensation. Because of COVID, the government was not able to pay the state governments the GST amount that it had promised. So it had taken a loan, and then it is paying off that loan to the states through the GST cess. And the other is that it also has given a interest free capital expenditure loan to the states, so that they can do the capital expenditure. So these are the two different other forms of loans that the government is giving to the state governments. You can read about it here. Now, the next news is with respect to towards a dispute resolution. Now, you should have complete clarity about alternate dispute resolution methods, because that is extremely important from the point of view of GS. Now, instead of going to courts, because going to court means a lengthy trial, and then ease of doing business also reduces. There are significant litigation costs, and then there are time and cost overruns that happens whenever a particular dispute goes into the Indian judiciary. As I keep telling you in my classes, that you should not see the face of Indian courts, because once you see the face of Indian courts, it is going to take 2 generations to resolve that particular issue. So remain as much as out of Indian courts as much as possible, and a good lawyer is one that keeps you out of the legal entanglement webs. Now let's talk about what has happened now. There is something called as arbitration. There is something called as mediation. Now what is mediation? Mediation is basically, suppose you and I have some kind of disagreement with respect to, you bought X thing from me, and both of us don't agree to it. Then what happens is that a third neutral person comes as a mediator. He's only going to channelize these two parties to come together and resolve the issue, just like India is trying to be a mediator between Russia and Ukraine. So mediator is someone who's a friend to both, who tries to resolve the issue amicably, but who does not have the decision making power. The decision has to be taken up by the parties, and whatever the decision is taken is not also binding on the parties. But as compared to arbitration, it's a much more formal process. It's like a trial where you have evidences and stuff. And then what happens is, the arbiter who basically announces the judgment is, or gives the verdict, or gives the award. Arbiters actually give award, they don't give judgments. It's called an award. So the award of the arbiter is final, and it has binding on both the parties. So this is one major difference. Now what has happened is that the government in 2015 had said that we will make India as an arbitration hub. By the way, as a lawyer, while arbitration you get a lot of money. Now so we will make arbitration hub, but with time what has happened is that there have been amendments in 2018, 19 and 21. Now this memorandum in 2024, and this memorandum basically talks about the fact that that once there is any kind of issue with respect to domestic public procurement. So suppose I am government of India, and I want, say, steel pipes, and suppose someone provides me steel pipes, and then I'm not, as a government of India, I'm not happy with them. Then the government under this memorandum says that yes, we will take mediation, so we will ask someone to mediate on our behalf. But if mediation doesn't work, then the government will not go for arbitration, the pipeline of arbitration basically dries out, and we'll go on to for litigation through the traditional court system, which will again take a number of years. Now the arbitration bar of India has advised against this memorandum, but the government is it's falling on deaf ears of the government. Now the government basically has a incorrect perception that arbitration is in India is inferior quality, and we don't have qualified arbiters. And then I mean, on one hand they say that we want to make India as arbitration hub, and then on the other hand they criticize their own arbitrators, and say that that it is corrupt, and we are not following due norms. So we need to have this arbitration cycle, and we need to have an arbitration hub in India. And if there is no arbitration hub, then the foreign, so you have to understand that people will not like to invest in India if they know that if anything happens wrong, if any problem comes, then they would have to go to courts and run behind courts for justice. And in case of arbitration, it takes say 2 3 months 4 months to resolve the issue, and that helps resolve the issue. So this is something that needs to be done, and it's a very very important article for governance. Then top court verdict on subclassification of SCs and STs today, you can read this. Then let's see this, you can read this news. Let's come to this particular news. All right. Axis of resistance. Axis of resistance is Iran-backed anti-US, anti-Israel grouping comprised of Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis. I've already given you all the context for this, where to read it from, and then you have to use it in terms of the map. And this is also linked to something called as what US President George W. Bush had used, axis of evil, referring to Iraq, Iran, and North Korea. So we now already know what are these parts and where are they operating from. Very very important. Now the other thing is Uttar Pradesh has passed an amendment to its 2021 anti conversion law. Now basically again something with respect to religion, and then they made the imprisonment even harsher and the fines even harsher. Now what they have done is that they focused on the religious conversion of vulnerable groups like minors conversion, women, and people with disabilities, SCs and STs. So the purpose of the act was to kind of prohibit any kind of religious conversion through misrepresentation, force, and any coercion, or through marriage. So any of these is not allowed. Now before any kind of conversion, you need to have a 60-day notice to the district magistrate, and you need to have and if there is any issue, then the anyone can file an FIR against that particular person. So you can read that the norms have changed for all of these this thing. And the bail conditions are also strict, just as in case with UAPA and your other norms. What was that? This Money Laundering Act. I'm forgetting the name of that Money Laundering Act, where the bail is only granted if the public prosecutor does not oppose. So bail is not a norm in this particular issue, and the courts must be satisfied that they are not guilty. Only then it will happen. Then it also adds mass conversion, where you are converting say 50-60 people at once. And then you have strict enforcement through which they are doing it. And a similar law exists in Uttarakhand, Gujarat, and Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh as well. So read about this particular news. It's an important news. And if you want to read what is a wing stall, and maybe you can read that. So this is athletes withdraw against Israelis, anthem jeered and plays booed. Maybe you can read this particular news on how in sports you are able to take such decisions. So this All right, that's about it, folks. From economy, overall bank credit growth dips, sharp rise in gold, housing loans is something that you can read. And will SEBI's proposed measures curb speculative trading in futures and options? These are two news that I'm asking you to read. Because of paucity of time, I could not go through these particular news. All right, folks. So this is about our development. Thank you very much. I wish you all the best for the day, and I will see you tomorrow again at same time. Bye bye, folks.